Good evening, folks. After on the heels of a unfortunate defeat at the hands of the Tucson Roadrunners in Game 1, 4-2, the San Jose Barracuda with a monstrous victory here in Game 2 on home ice before they head out to the desert for potentially 3 more games. Tonight, it was a 6-3 win for Team Teal / Orange, and this is Barracuda After Dark, your only post-game show for the San Jose Barracuda. Of course, we are part of the Teal Town USA network, and if you want to be a part of the show, tweet us at Teal Town USA. Use the hashtag Teal Town USA. I may not get to your tweets this evening because I am running solo. However, we can discuss them on a future episode of our show. And then, of course, for those of you listening on iTunes, Stitcher, TuneIn, SoundCloud, or your favorite podcatcher, you can catch us after each and every San Jose Sharks game. And we try to do this after the Barracuda games when we can. Of course, follow us on Twitter, as I mentioned before. Visit tealtownusa.com. That way, you stay in the know about what's happening with the Sharks and the Barracuda, all the ins and outs of that. Folks, I am Kevin Lacey. Thank you for joining me this evening. As I mentioned, I am solo. Hopefully, we will not have the same technical difficulties that we did after the Sharks swept the Ducks the other night, where the camera was stuck on AJ throughout the entire broadcast. The camera is stuck on me tonight. I am sorry, folks. But that's because it's just me at Kevin Lacey 22. But enough about me. Let's talk about the game. What a game it was. Game 1 was not a bad game either. I want to recap that really quickly. The San Jose Barracuda had some bad luck in that game. Antoine Bibeau, the starting netminder, of course, as you know, for the Barracuda, really didn't look that sharp in Game 1. And he didn't exactly look that sharp here in Game 2. I'll get to that tonight. But the Barracuda really outplayed the Roadrunners for good stretches of Game 1. Unfortunately, it was a late goal with 75 seconds left by Lane Peterson that clinched the win after an empty net goal that followed that, made it 4-2. So the Barracuda trailed 1-0 in the best of 5 series in round 1 of the Calder Cup playoffs. Now, for those of you who are new to the show, first off, thank you. Please subscribe down below. And if you aren't new to the show, but you don't exactly know how the AHL playoff format works, it is a best of 5 series in round 1 only. And typically what happens is when there's the two teams facing each other have a 300-mile difference between the two cities, it'll fall under this weird playoff format. So like in this case, Tucson, definitely over 300 miles from San Jose out in Arizona. It's a 2-3 format. So for those of you saying, why the Barracuda barely made the playoffs? We made the playoffs, but the Barracudas barely made the playoffs. How the heck did they start out on home ice? It is because it's a 2-3 situation. It gets really quirky when the cities are close. For example, the Chicago Wolves and the Rockford Ice Hogs, which are the Golden Knights and the Blackhawks affiliates, they're so close. They're doing a 1-1-1-1-1 series. Sometimes you'll see a 2-1-1-1, blah, blah, blah. You know, it really gets all crazy. But that's why the game was at SAP Center tonight. And it started off with a bang. The first period was absolutely insane. Absolutely insane. Who's saying that's for the regular season? Is that something okay. I'll get to that in a minute. I'm looking at the chat. Thank you for joining me in the chat, by the way. I forgot to mention, I will be periodically checking the chat, interacting with you. I definitely encourage you to do so for all of our shows. But yeah, that first period was absolutely wild. And it started just a minute and 25 seconds in. Ivan Chekhovich, don't call him Chekovich. Ivan Chekhovich took a shot on goaltender for the Roadrunners, Aiden Hill. The rebound went behind the net, but Chekhovich was able to beat out the Roadrunner, I almost said Coyote, defender, threw it back up to the middle for Rudolph Balcers. Now, the key to this situation was Chekhovich threw it behind Balcers, but Balcers was able to reach out and corral it, and because of that, he used his essentially reverse momentum to spin around and fire one through the legs of Aiden Hill. The 5-hole was just wide open there. Aiden Hill not set at all, not expecting Balcers to shoot, especially with the poor but not so poor pass from Shakovic there. And that's not to knock Shakovic, because boy, that guy's vision, we saw it at a big time high tonight. He looked outstanding. But Balcers, you're going to hear that name a lot. The leading scorer for the Barracuda this season pots his first Calder Cup playoff goal, just a minute 25 in, 1-0 Barracuda. However, just 3 minutes later, Dylan Strome, I believe, if I recall, the former 4th overall pick for the Arizona Coyotes 2 years ago, former line mate of Connor McJesus, whatnot. Dylan Strome, who did score in game 1, he got another goal 4 minutes into the first, set up by Connor Garland. And really what it was it was set up by Barracuda defenseman Nick DeSimone, who has had his struggles this season, unfortunately, on the defensive side. A little too much Sandis Ozolinsh type play at times. And if, for those of you longtime Sharks fans, you know exactly what I'm talking about there. Nick DeSimone was absolutely pickpocketed by Garland and gets the puck to Strome, and Strome just wires it. Strome just wired it in. That tied the game up and really just seized the momentum right back, because Dylan Strome ends up getting another goal. Just, I believe it was 2 minutes after. Yeah, 2 minutes afterwards, Dylan Strome with the second of the game. And that was one where Mario Kempa, the brother of Adrian Kempa of the Kings, made a pretty nice play to get the puck to Strome. Just kind of a, pivot pass. Jacob Middleton, defenseman, pretty good defenseman for the Barracuda, but not so much on this play. Strome makes a nice little quick move to the outside. Middleton basically stumbles over, allowing Strome to shoot. And again, just another shot from the slot from Strome. Thankfully, this was the last good chance Strome had for the night, because early on it looked like it was going to be Dylan Strome's night and everyone else trying to play catch up. Strome with his second, his third of the playoffs, and suddenly 2-1 Roadrunners. But then later on in the first period, just over halfway through, Barracuda on the power play, the continually on fire power play. That's now 12, power play goals in 12 out of the last 13 games now for the Barracuda, as Adam Haluka puts in his first of the playoffs. And this was a really nice play by Middleton, the guy I just mentioned, who kind of bobbled himself on the last goal. Jacob Middleton takes a shot, hits the side of the net. However, he does a fantastic job of battling with the Roadrunners defense at the side from his knees, throws it back out in front. Balcers ends up kind of whiffing on the pass, but thankfully Haluka comes in, bobbles. Actually, I'm getting ahead of myself. That's the next goal. But Balcers ended up getting assist somehow on this, because Middleton's the one who made the pass to Haluka. Haluka ends up backhanding it in. It's one of those situations where it's like, just hit the net, because Aiden Hill was completely out. Once the puck came out to the middle, Hill was leaning way too far. Haluka, his first of the year. Now the play that I was talking about, Rourke Chartier with 5 minutes left. He had been stymied earlier in the period on a breakaway. Rourke Chartier has really struggled to put up goals here since coming back from his concussion. In fact, if anyone in the chat wants to look up when was the last time Rourke Chartier actually scored a goal, because it does feel like it's been a while. Tim Heed with the initial shot. Yes, Tim Heed with the initial shot. This is the one where Rudolph Balcers had a chance to put in the rebound, kind of whiffed on it, but Chartier comes in as the third man, puts that in, and the Barracuda come away with a 3-2 lead after the first period. A lot of offense, a lot of excitement. The intensity was really, really high this entire game. If you couldn't tell, that's why I'm talking super fast. Now, I do have a question in the chat from Vince G asking if Signee Thomas Gregoire took warm-ups. I am not aware of that. I did hear some rumblings about it in the crowd. Unfortunately, I was late getting to the arena this evening. And okay, I got another question in the chat I want to answer. I was late getting to the arena, so I missed warm-ups. However, I'm glad you brought up warm-ups, because Sharks prospect Joachim Blichfeld took the warm-ups tonight, and it looked like he was going to be in the lineup. In fact, I tweeted it out and within 30 seconds deleted it when the lineup was actually posted. Joachim Blichfeld looks like he's going to be wearing Ryan Carpenter's former number 40 for now that Emerson Clark has 86. But Blichfeld did not play tonight. Neither did Sharks prospect Noah Gregor, who made his debut in Game 1. Gregor came out of the lineup for a returning Philip Sandberg. Sandberg was a player who, as Sharks broadcaster Nick Nollenberger said himself, was out for the year due to knee surgery. Yet their number 43, Philip Sandberg, was on the fourth line with Emerson Clark. And he looked pretty good, actually, for not having played in 2.5 months, I think it's been. Just wrapping up some questions in the chat real quick. John Schwartz, thank you for joining me this evening. He asked if I was wearing my orange jersey and the turtleneck. Yes, absolutely I was. Sometimes I do switch it up at those games, but I was in my patented orange jersey, white turtleneck. If you saw me on the Jumbotron, super pumped in the third period after a goal we'll talk about. You definitely know that one. I am not in that jersey right now because my friend Kelly told me I should wear the Mark-Edward Vlasic jersey on the show this evening. And I'm not wearing the turtleneck because I came home to about an 85-degree house. I don't know why it's so hot in here, but I am roasting. So I guess it's definitely playoffs here in California. Let's move on to the second period. There wasn't a whole lot in terms of action to tell about, but the intensity probably was at its peak. I'm not going to say feistiness at its peak, but the overall intensity was at its peak in the second period. Mario Kempa, mentioned earlier, he's Adrian's brother, a player I was really aggravated with in Game 1 for a lot of flops and dives that he was doing. But he did put his first goal of the season in. This was all set up by Carter Camper. Carter Camper, who was acquired January, February-ish from the Springfield Thunderbirds, from the Florida Panthers to be exact. Camper, with a sweet play, basically drew both defensemen, or at least a defenseman and a back checker with him. I couldn't tell if it was a between the legs pass, but it was definitely a pass in behind him to Kempa, who was wide open in the slot. Kempa puts the puck to the stick side of Bibeau, and it was tied at 3. The shots after the first period, I do want to get to this real quick. The shots after the first period were 16-7 for the Barracuda. I actually thought that period was pretty even. The goals, obviously, only 3-2. Pretty even, it seemed like. Second period, I actually thought the Barracuda outplayed Tucson, yet the shots were 10-7 in favor of Tucson in that period. But just good, hard hockey. And I do want to touch up Antoine Bibeau because I mentioned it earlier. 2 goals on 7 shots in the first period. Looks to be fighting something a little bit right now. I'm not sure what's going on. The Roadrunners are doing a very good job of screening the net, which Antoine Bibeau, you'd think as a taller goalie, should be able to see over that. However, he also has that tendency to drop a little bit. And Bibeau, not quite on his game yet. But the team in front of him have been outstanding through these first 2 games here at home. So we got a 3-3 tie going into the third period. Third period shots real quickly, 9-8. So still a very close competitive game, even though this score is going to get a little bit lopsided. Third period, Rudolph Balcers, I mentioned him earlier. He had a goal. He had an assist. He gets his second goal of the game. Rourke Chartier set this play up. I actually have to check my notes on this because it was absolute pandemonium here trying to keep up with certain things here. So I'm going to, as a stall tactic, talk about the crowd for a minute. Very, very good crowd tonight. Let's see. It was 5,197 announced, and I believe it because I pegged it right at about 5,000 fans this evening. The official capacity, if I recall, is 6,000. It's something like 6,008 or 6,086, something like that. No, 6,123. 6,123 is the official sellout total for the Barracuda. So just about 1,000 under, about 950 under, and a very solid showing. Of course, the $2 beers really help out. but it's also playoffs and it's a Saturday night. So fantastic showing by the team in Teal. And I hope you guys will be here for round 2. I hope we have a round 2. Hey, we prayed that we wouldn't be done yet. And here we are. We're still not done yet. And now I'm going to actually talk about the Rudolph Balcers goal. This what I was correct in saying it was started out by Chartier. Balcers and Chartier. It was a 2-on-2. He moves the puck up to Balcers, but one of the two back checking or defending rather for the Roadrunners was Connor Garland, the pint-sized forward, great skater, but not used to being in the defensive zone. So Balcers and Chartier ate him alive on this play. Puck ended up getting to Chartier, wide open, takes a shot, rebound, Balcers buries it in. That made it 4-3. That was your game-winning goal. But just a heck of a play. Way to react to the who's out on the ice on that. I got on the Jumbotron, as I mentioned before. I was trying to get the crowd pumped up. I know Marley Sommer, he was up there. He got bonked in the head by a puck that went out in the crowd, but good to see him doing Cotton Eye Joe later in the game. So I'll give out a shout out to Roy Sommer's son, Marley Sommer, on that. Now let's see. Did they give away these towels tonight? Yes, they gave away this towel both at game 1 and at game 2. I am keeping this one because we got a victory. And let's see, other things in the chat. Hello to Nick Neff Tippets. Thank you. Tippets. I always say your name wrong. I'm sorry. Nick Neff Tippets. Thanks for joining us. Dollar hot dogs. Gotta love those dollar hot dogs. I had 4. Helen TK Garcia. I'm sorry you have to leave as well, but it is Saturday night and I understand. Rob Humphrey, nowhere to be found because he always craps on the Barracuda. And yes, that is a call out, folks. You missed a heck of a game, despite the fact that AHL hockey is so boring, Rob. But whatever. We'll see you on Teal Town, USA after dark for the second round of the Sharks games. There is my little rant for the evening. Got it in there. So with 4 minutes left, it was still a 1-goal game with 4 minutes left. And Sasha Chmelevski with the shot, kind of way out from the slot, but not so much the point. Chmelevski with the shot. Manny Viederer, after a dogfight of a third period for him, he was all over the place. An honorable mention has to go to Manny Viederer tonight for how he played. He was just on fire, and he is not the strongest player physically. But boy, he looked great, and he's out there parked in front of Aiden Hill with a sweet redirect from bar down, basically redirect off of Chmelevski's shot. Viederer with his first Calder Cup playoff goal professionally. That made it 5-3. That was a big time dagger. Shortly thereafter, Aiden Hill was pulled for the extra skater. But then Rourke Chartier, after a very nice pass, very nice saucer backhand pass from Ivan Shikovic, Chartier gets his second goal of the game, and that put it away. 6-3 was the final, but that's not all, folks. There were some more antics there, because with about 45 seconds left, an absolute brawl, and I do mean brawl, broke out. Not ECHL like, but it's about as big as you can get for the AHL. And it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. Now, I did not see, it started off as typical, we're going to push each other after the play kind of thing. Tucson's upset because they've lost this game. They want to steal some momentum or just something, show an effort here as they head back to the TCC in Tucson next week. But all of a sudden, Dakota Mermis, defenseman who is known from time to time to completely lose his mind, he comes in from the blue line and obliterates, I think it was Emerson Clark. I couldn't quite tell. It looked like Clark or Philip Sandberg, but he absolutely obliterates him from behind with a big time cross check, that blindside hit into the net, and almost broke that PG rating right there. But all hell broke loose. All hell broke loose because Emerson Clark beelined Mermis. They're going at it. Eventually, Manny Wiederer, 130 pounds of Manny Wiederer. Okay, he's not that tiny, but it sure seems like it sometimes. Manny Wiederer, he gets in a fight with Trevor Murphy at the end. It was crazy. We got just basically everybody's dropped their gloves at this point and is going off. Ended up being two official fights. The Murphy and Wiederer fight, which Wiederer actually won in terms of punches. Trevor Murphy with the double leg takedown, which I haven't seen in hockey in quite some time. That was kind of impressive. That finished off the fight. Both were ejected from the game for continuing an altercation, and the fact that it was in the final minute. I'm curious to see if both Wiederer and Murphy are suspended going into game 3. Emerson Clark, meanwhile, he and Dakota Mermis got 5 minutes for fighting. Mermis also picked up the extra penalty for cross-checking. Gee, no freaking way that was going to get, again, trying not to swear on this right now because it was a pretty heated moment. But Emerson Clark, Richard Ramirez, follow him at Barracuda is Life on Twitter. Richard Ramirez had pointed out earlier in the chat that Emerson Clark got his 10th fighting major of the season, and that is an automatic 1-game suspension. However, I do not know if the playoffs qualify for that. I don't see why they would not, but I don't know if that's not in consideration in that. So we'll wait and see on suspensions heading into game 3 in Tucson. But the final score was 6-3 for the Barracuda, tying the series at 1-1. Barracuda outplayed the Roadrunners in both games at home. That's huge. That's a huge confidence builder. They played very well against Tucson in the regular season as well. So despite the fact that this is the first time that since a Phoenix/Arizona AHL minor league franchise has won the division since 1997, the series is tied 1-1, and there is a lot to be confident about San Jose's game right now, especially the 6-game winning streak to end the season. And Tucson didn't put up the best showing at the end of the year. They did win those 2 big games to help us get into the playoffs. They beat San Diego the last 2 games, but it was 3 minutes away from not even happening. And then the Roadrunners rallied and won the second to last game. So the Roadrunners are a little bit off right now. I don't know if it's because they're missing Laurent Dauphin, but they're definitely, there's something going on there. They're not playing their best hockey right now, despite the fact that they are loaded with talent. But let's just hope that the reinforcements continue to contribute. In the reinforcements, of course, Shakovich, Shmulevsky, Noah Gregor's there. Blickfeld may start in game 3, especially if Wiederer and Clark are suspended. I got to think that Gregor and Blickfeld draw into the lineup. So just an absolutely wonderful showing. Rudolph Balcers, the #1 star of the night, jumping ahead, 4 points on the night for him. Definitely just looking like the best skating player for the Barracuda this whole season. He showed up tonight. Way to go, Rudolph. I want to get on to some of the other games in the AHL, but before I do, let's get you, I don't have a graphic for you. In fact, this is absolutely ridiculous. There we go. I was going to say somewhere I can't find the series breakdown. So Wednesday night in Tucson is game 3. Game 4 is Friday, and then the potential game 5 is on Saturday. In the AHL, the playoff schedule is staggered the same way as it is in the regular season. It is not like the NHL, where typically it's every other night. Most of the time in the AHL, you're going to see a few games on Wednesday, a few games on Thursday, and an overload of games Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Mondays and Tuesdays are typically days off, and it doesn't change in the playoffs. In fact, tonight, here Saturday, April 21st, there were 7 games, and out of 8 possible matchups. So I do want to get to that. The out of town scores, the AHL reach around, as it's called, on the main Teal Town After Dark show. Once again, if you're new to the show, please. Oh, Vince G, thank you so much. Laurent Dauphin is my absolute favorite name to say, bar none. But if you're new to the show, please hit the subscribe button. Let me throw up the graphics here one more time, just to pay the bills that we have but have no sponsorship for. But please check out tealtownusa.com. Your support means the most to all of us here. There's a great interview that was conducted with Jamie Baker about the first round of the playoffs here. Of course, we have the recent interview with Jonathan Becker, who is the president of the San Jose Sharks, the recently named president of the San Jose Sharks. You can catch those on Teal Town USA on our YouTube channel. So again, please subscribe to that. And of course, if you're listening on your favorite podcatcher, such as iTunes, TuneIn, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and I forgot the other one, but you can definitely hit that subscribe button and make sure you don't miss any of our shows. And of course, as well, you can contribute to the show by talking to me in the Google chat or tweeting us at TealTownUSA. Use the hashtag TealTownUSA. We also have a Facebook. I don't know why we never promote that, but we do have a Facebook. Hit that like button. Of course, Facebook is not exactly in the greatest of media light at the moment. So if you don't trust that, we've got all the other avenues covered, including Instagram. Sure, why not? So let's get to the out-of-town scores. Let's see, actually, Nick Neff Tippets. Hope my life allows me to watch as many Teal Town USA. Yes, we are out there about as much as the WWE network is these days. So I have an absolute wonderful question from Brandon Jones here. I will answer right now because if I leave it for the end of the show, I may forget. What got me into AHL hockey, and do I prefer it to the NHL? I absolutely prefer the NHL over the AHL. It's just a better product. Obviously, the best of the best. And the excitement is the excitement of the 17,000 folks that show up to the tank night after night is absolutely wonderful. What I love about the AHL, those who know me, those who do follow me on Twitter at Kevin Lacey 22 know that I am a prospects guy. I've always been a prospects guy. If you search at Kevin Lacey 22, you will find a tweet of mine from 2013 about Joakim Ryan, because I'm a prospects guy. I freaking love it. So this is my best avenue to be able to watch these guys, especially because the more of a grown-up that I become, the harder it is for me to track guys overseas. So this is my easiest avenue, and it's wonderful to have the AHL here, moved from Worcester to San Jose. It's absolutely wonderful. It's unfortunate that the crowds typically are not there. Tonight it was great. But I definitely would like to see more marketing from this team, more mentions on the broadcasts, on the Sharks broadcasts about the Barracuda. I definitely don't understand why there isn't a TV deal in place with Comcast Hometown Network, because the San Jose Giants get a lot of broadcasts on that channel. I don't know why the Barracuda don't. I'm hoping that's something that will eventually come about, because most of the teams on the East Coast do have AHL coverage in their local television markets. I'd like to see that for the Barracuda. Nick Nolenberger, of course, we have a broadcast sort of team. Nick Nolenberger is there for all the games. Dave Maley sometimes is there. I would love to join the broadcast, folks. Tweet at San Jose at SJ Barracuda. Send me to the broadcast. Sure, why not? No, that's just a shameless plug for myself now. But I love hockey. I love seeing the players develop, and it's just this awesome feeling when you can say, "Hey, I saw this player before anyone else did." Like the San Jose Giants, perfect example. I saw Madison Bumgarner and Buster Posey in 2009 play for the San Jose Giants before the world did, and it was amazing to see. And so last year's team for the Barracuda, especially all those prospects, Marcus Sorensen, 3 huge goals here in the playoffs for the Sharks. You're seeing the Barracuda players starting to contribute to the main team, and hopefully that will continue into next year, especially with Joe Thornton and the limbo of his contract and his health and his age and just all those different factors. That's why you go to Barracuda games. So I hope that if you do live in the Bay Area, go check one out. Really, really, just go check one out. Laurel, thank you for tweeting out the link to the Jonathan Becker interview. That's awesome of you. Jaden Halbagawatz. Yes, Halbagawatz. What a name. I call him 1.21 gigawatts. I also heard another, someone else came up with a wonderful nickname for him. But for those of you who need to spell that, that's Halbgewachs, Halbagawatts. Now I've really put off the out-of-town scores. So let's get to that, because like I mentioned, there are 7 games or 6 other games to get hold of this evening. The Grand Rapids Griffins. Let's start off with them because they're the defending Calder Cup champs. They lose their first game of the Calder Cup playoffs 3-2 to the Manitoba Moose, who were for all intents and purposes, the best team in the AHL this season. Manitoba was incredible. And you're seeing it with the Winnipeg Jets right now in the playoffs as well, who have had issues with suspensions and injuries on their back line. Manitoba has sent up, I think, 3 of their defensemen to help out the Jets here in the playoffs, and it hasn't mattered. In fact, it hasn't mattered because Cam Schilling, not exactly an offensive-minded defenseman for Manitoba, but yet he got his first goal of the playoffs to tie that game up in the third period, just 31 seconds after Turner Elson, who looked great for the Griffins last year, by the way. Turner Elson made it 2-1 for the Griffins. Schilling tied the game with about 7 minutes left. And then with 1 minute and 9 seconds left, Michael Spacek with his first career playoff goal for Manitoba. They pull it off, take the 1-0 series lead against Grand Rapids there. Now, the Toronto Marlies put up 47 shots on the Utica Comets in their first game of the series. They also came away with a 3-2 win. That was a shot fest, though. I mentioned 47 for Toronto, so you'd probably think, what, 20 for Utica? Utica put up 34 themselves. So the goalies had a good night. Just one goalie had a better night, and I'm going to assume that was Garrett Sparks, but I don't want to pull that up just yet. That was an overtime win, though. Explains why there's 47 shots there. Chris Mueller, with just 2 minutes and 12 seconds left in overtime, the AHL vet Chris Mueller got the game-winning goal, and that was after Michael Chaput scored with 36 seconds left, under 36 seconds left in the third period to tie that game up. And it was indeed Garrett Sparks who defeated Thatcher Demko, a player that I absolutely love for the Canucks, and I'm going to hate for the Canucks in years to come. Because obviously, as a divisional rival of the Sharks, it's going to suck when they have an incredible goalie, as Thatcher Demko should become for them. Moving on to the Eastern Conference now. Actually, Toronto and Utica were the Eastern Conference. So, Charlotte Checkers. Here you go. The Charlotte Checkers were a team who last season kind of pulled off the miracle playoff berth the way the Barracuda did this year, where they had an unbelievable month of March and April and squeaked in and then took the Chicago Wolves, if I recall, to the maximum 5 games in that first round. But the Charlotte Checkers are a team, if you know of Patrick Williams, you know he's been big on the Charlotte Checkers here the last little while, and they seem to be one of his favorites to come out of the East as kind of an underdog favorite. If you don't know who Patrick Williams is, he is at P. Williams NHL, but he covers the AHL like nobody does. There's nobody who gives better insight than the AHL, and that's his main job for NHL.com, is to cover the AHL. Definitely give him a follow, because he might be my favorite person to follow. I love all you guys, but he might be my favorite. He was huge on Charlotte, and Charlotte is coming up huge on the Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins. That was a 4-1 win for the Checkers this evening, and as they take a 2-0 series lead, And sorry, I got a text there that's really distracting. This was quite the surprise for the Penguins to be down 0-2. And I do want to pull up this box score real quick, because this was a game that was tied 1-1 going into the third period. And then the Checkers scored 3 times in the third. And okay. So it was 3 times in the third, but it was 2 empty net goals. That's what I wanted to check out. So Josiah Didier with the game winning goal, with about 5.5 minutes left in the third. But Charlotte, another team with loaded with prospects, just like Tucson is. But unlike Tucson, Charlotte's got that 2-0 lead. So forget you, Tucson. Moving on to the crazy game of the evening, the Syracuse Crunch defeated the Rochester Americans 6-5 in the Where's the Goaltending matchup. Syracuse, who did lose in the Calder Cup Finals last year to the Griffins, they take a 2-0 series lead on the Americans. I want to mention Connor Crusher Blackwell, former Barracuda, who, you know, he was trapped on the fourth line for most of the season. He played very well on the fourth line for the Barracuda last year in a checking role, penalty killing role. In fact, if I recall, Blackwell had a couple of huge goals in the playoffs for the Barracuda last year, hence we gave him the nickname Crusher. Actually, Richard Ramirez gave him the nickname Crusher. He scored the first goal for the Americans, but that was about it for the actually, that's not it for the Barracuda ties, because former Barracuda of this season, Olivier Archambault, who has just been killing. You want to talk about Crusher? He's been crushing it for the Crunch. That was totally not a planned sentence there. He scores in this game, but the winning goal was scored by Alexander Volkov, or it ended up being the winning goal. 2 third period goals for Volkov. Baptiste was able to bring the Americans back to within 1. However, it was 6-5 Crunch. And actually, where was the goaltending? Because the shots were only 25-22. So, now moving over to the Northeast, the Providence Bruins with a 5-3 victory on the Lehigh Valley Phantoms. And that's a series that definitely, boy, if you were able to afford $250 worth of AHL Live for the playoffs, think about this for a second. AHL Live, $300 for the regular season, $250 for the playoffs. There's fewer games. $250, yeah. But this is definitely a series that I would be watching, because the Phantoms and the Bruins are definitely loaded with talent on both teams. But the Bruins with 3 big goals in the third period. It was 2-2 going into the third. We're seeing a lot of 3-goal third periods between the Barracuda game and the Crunch game, or the whatever game it was, Comets and the Bruins. But Peter Schillarik and Jakob Forsbacka Karlsson both score the winning and insurance goals for the Bruins there. Now over to the Western Conference, or back over to the Western Conference, the final matchup that has not been discussed yet. The Rockford Ice Hogs on the road in Chicago, all 17 miles from Chicago. They take a 1-0 series lead with a 2-1 victory there. Tyler Sakura, who was an ECH, kind of like an Emerson Clark kind of player, where he did absolutely nothing in the ECHL last year. Actually, Clark had better stats last year in the ECHL. Sakura kind of was a nobody, and has gone from being a nobody to having an NHL contract with the Blackhawks this season. He scored to start off this game. Timo Pulkkinen, who keeps bouncing around between NHL and AHL teams, he tied that game up in the third period. However, Adam Clendenning, the former Tucson Roadrunner, he was able to put that one away. I was actually in the second period. I misread this here. So it was 2-0, and then Pulkkinen made it 2-1. But Clendenning, player who was traded for Laurent Dauphin earlier this year, he gets the game-winning goal. And then, of course, the San Jose Barracuda defeat the Roadrunners 6-3. Once again, Game 3 for the Barracuda is Wednesday night at the TCC. There will not be any more home games in San Jose in round 1. So if you want to get one of these towels, because we're not done yet, you're going to want to check out, definitely listen to the broadcast. Of course, there's Nick Nolenberger for the Barracuda on 1220 KDOW or the feed that I actually listen to online. And this is not a knock on Nick Nollenberger, but Tom Callahan does a wonderful, unbiased job for the Roadrunners on their radio broadcast. So I listen to that one because I think he's brilliant. But yeah, you've got two strong commentators there covering the rest of this series, and hopefully you can come out to a game in round 2 for the Barracuda playoffs. I'm going to go back to the chat here real quick. Let's see here. What do we got going on? The Heat is out. Yeah, Rob Iman, I think he literally meant the Heat is on this week. Yes, it's going to be a warm one. However, the Heat are out thanks to the Barracuda, thanks to the Roadrunners. And let's see here. Anything else in the chat before I call it a night here? Hopefully no buffering. Hi, Chris. Thanks for joining. I hope I didn't AOL there. I'm assuming what happened was the AHL website likes to randomly refresh when I put it on no refresh, and when it does, it seems to stall out the connection. So hopefully that it was just that, and we're smooth sailing from here. Christine would like to start a band called the Charlotte Checkers. I will definitely I'll be on board with that. I think that they have the best goal song and best goal horn in the AHL. Chris says I don't breathe, and Laurel tells me to drink some water, and I will absolutely take you up on that. And hopefully you did not see what label it was, because they did not pay for a sponsor. But if you would like for us to have sponsors, please tell all of your friends to subscribe to Teal Town USA, because, of course, we want to be there for you forever and ever and ever. And in order to do that, help support our cause. Now, see, I'm starting to make it into a PBS show, I think. So it's really time for me to get the heck out of here. But let's see. Oh, dear. We've got some anti-Fonseca comments in the chat. The only thing I'm going to say is, hey, Aaron, we'll see you next year. Oh, wait, we're not done yet. Thanks for almost jinxing it, pal. But yeah, that's enough of that. Yes, please be kind and subscribe, and we love you. So once again, the final score tonight, I'm going to call it a night, folks. Thank you all for joining us this evening. At Teal Town USA is your Twitter and your Instagram follow. That is absolutely must have. Make sure you don't miss an episode. Again, Jamie Baker had an interview with us just a couple days ago. That's on tealtownusa.com. We also have the Jonathan Becker interview. There's tons of interviews in our archives. Randy Hahn, Dan Rusanowski. I know there is another massive one coming. Another massive one. AJ would kill me if I didn't mention it. So you're going to want to check that one out. And Teal Tinted Glasses will be back on Monday night. We were on earlier in the week, so please check that out. That's the sister station to Teal Town USA. I am on that show from time to time, and I will be on Monday, or at least I plan to be. Myself, Hockey Jerk, Ian Reed, talking hockey, talking the NHL playoffs. I'm sure we'll talk some more Barracuda on Teal Tinted Glasses, so check that out at Teal Tinted Pod. Thank you very much. Let's see. Factor of Fiction, Weeder gets a suspension. I already mentioned that earlier. So go back, rewatch the show, or re-listen on SoundCloud, Google, iTunes, blah, blah, blah. Thank you all for joining us, and have a great night. For joining me, have a great night.